Welcome back, everyone. You are watching the Vintage Sewing Machine Garage, and this is my latest installment on the Elna Lock Pro 5, or the L5D model Serger. This is a mid-1980s Serger / overlock machine, and I've been taking you guys through the process I've been using for the first time. It's my first overlocker. I've been restoring vintage sewing machines, overhauling them for about 10 years now. This is my first Serger. I got interested in a way because I had some recent experience with my first industrial overlock machines. And I thought, well, what about the home Sergers? Because a lot more of you have those than have industrial overlockers, at least as far as I can tell from those of you who watch the channel. So I wondered what that would be like. In this installment, what I wanted to do was talk about the motor. Now, the sewing machine motor that was installed for this Serger, it's very much the same kind of motor you would have in a lock stitch or a regular sewing machine, as some of you may refer to them as. And but I wanted to show you guys what I was going to do while I had the bottom off. Now, on the other side, when I have the machine upright, turned around in the back, you can see the other side because, of course, there are two brush housings and two motor brushes. Because I have the bottom off, I want to inspect the motor. I want to inspect this brush. I always inspect both. Typically, if brushes are still original or if they have been replaced in pairs, they should wear the same. So if you look at, a brush on one side, it should have the same wear as one on the other. But don't assume because, maybe someone was able to replace another brush or the brush up top. Maybe they didn't bother with the bottom one. Who knows? You just want to know for sure for yourself. So this was easy to remove. This is the cap to the brush. It's plastic. Now this one is kind of nice because it has a little bit of a brass housing to give it strength. But remember, these are plastic. Now, I normally don't, very often, these brushes, because they are plastic moving against the metal, I don't always have a ton of problem getting them off. But be extra gentle with these. Don't be rough, because as the plastic ages, it degrades and it can crumble right in your hands. I've seen that happen before. Anyway, this is the motor brush spring. And again, as always, the Serger, this machine is unplugged. Never have any machine plugged in when you're working on it. It's common sense, but it's always good. We all need to remind ourselves of such things. So when I pull on this, thankfully, it comes out. It's not stuck. Sometimes motor brushes can get stuck. Now, what do we have here? We have, now I don't know if this is the original brush or somebody used it so much it was a replacement that's worn down. Brushes don't wear out super quick. It takes a while. And this brush it's kind of an interesting shape. It's shaped like the letter I for whatever reason, but it has a curve, okay? Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take cotton swab and alcohol, and this has to do with checking. You want to check to see if there's a lot of carbon. A lot of times the brushes will powder, as they wear, they create a residue. So this is a technique you can use. Instead of taking a motor out, disassembling it, and refinishing the commutator. The commutator is a ring. It's made of copper, and the brushes seat on it. And this is how the motor, it's part of how the motor transfers electricity into power. But for our purposes, we want to be able to clean that. Now, in some videos, I have seen people take various sewing machine motors, often they're old Singer motors and others, and they'll take them all apart, and then they will actually take sandpaper or wet dry, very fine sandpaper, and they will sand down the copper. Now, that's one way to get it cleaned and leveled, but you remember, copper is a soft metal, and you will shorten the lifespan of the motor. So, one way to clean the commutator without doing all of that is to take a cotton swab. You can use the here it is. I normally buy cotton swabs. I'll either get the Q-tip or even a generic brand is fine. But I can also use precision tips. Precision tips are made only, to my knowledge, by the Q-tip brand. They are extra dense and they hold up a little bit better. But for the purposes of what we're doing, we'll be fine. So I dip this in 99% rubbing alcohol. I'm going to simply put it down in here. And first thing I'm going to do is kind of rub around the sides of where the brush is. And you can see the black residue, and that's normal. That doesn't mean there's anything wrong with it necessarily. Now, I'm going to take the other end, and I've put it in alcohol. Now I'm going to push this down to where it stops, and when it stops, it's stopping because it's bumping up against that copper commutator. Now, if I can do this without getting in your way so you can see. Now I'm going to take my hand on the hand wheel, and I'm going to just light pressure. Don't put a lot of pressure on the cotton swab, but you can see it under my thumb. Now I'm going to put light pressure so I know it's touching, and I'm going to turn the hand wheel. I'm just going to turn it, a couple of rotations and pull it out and see what I get. So I'm getting some of this residue on the commutator itself, and I've removed it. And it's been a relatively simple way to remove it. We can do, we'll do one more pass with a different swab. And we'll do it once more. Sometimes a motor won't have a lot of this dust, and sometimes it will. And now we're getting to just a little bit left there. I think it's actually quite clean. Now, a word about these brushes. A motor brush does take a while to overhaul. To wear down. Some people will replace them. The average brush is about 3/4 of an inch long, sometimes longer, sometimes 7/8 of an inch, something like that. I have this brush, and I'll double check the top one, but normally they wear at the same rate. This one is just a hair over 1/4 of an inch. Now, there are people who will use brushes and they'll let them wear down more. I don't like to do that, because if a brush ever completely wears away and you have none of the brush material left and all you've got is this spring, you can damage and ruin an electric motor that way, and that would be a shame. Brushes are not expensive, so I'm going to put in an order. I've got a couple of things to order for this Serger, and I'm going to order brushes for this motor. I don't expect them to be expensive, and when they come, I will install them, and it should basically, that'll be good for quite a long time. So, if you've checked your brushes before, again, they take a while to wear down. It just depends on how many hours the motor's been used. So for now, I'm going to put this back, and you can see, of course, there's a curvature. You guys can see the curve. A lot of times when you get brushes, they don't come with a curve. They come, just with a flat surface. But when you put the brush in, when it's flat, it'll need time to wear down and form this curve, but that's okay. Because this already has a curve, I'm going to pay attention to how I'm installing it, right? So it came in, the curve was, coming toward us, right? Because the commutator we're not looking at it like the face dial of a clock. We're looking at it on its edge, okay? So the curve, which you see here, is going to face. It's not going to go to the left or to the right. I want the curve. You can see it there. I want the curve to face towards the motor, which means it will seat right up on the commutator where I pulled it off, and it should be very happy to do so. If you make a mistake and you don't, the brush will work, but your motor may complain. It may make weird noises, and just make life easier on yourself and get the curve to seat and line up with the commutator. Now I just got to get it to. It's kind of an odd angle here because I'm trying to push this in while I have. I don't have a ton of room to get my fingers in here, but should be okay. I just need to get it. There she goes. Okay. So now I put this back, and when you put these back, guys, you don't really have a lot of threads in the motor housing, so be extra careful. It's very easy to cross thread these, okay? Because you're kind of having to eyeball, and you do it by feel. You look at it and say, well, it looks like it's going in straight, but notice as I turn this with the screwdriver very gently, I'm getting a nice smooth turning. Okay, I can tell it's threading because it's not hard, it's not fussy. If you put this in and just a slight angle off, it's going to be hard to turn, and just stop right there. Okay, because if you don't, that means you're cross threading, and these are plastic, and you really don't want to damage it, right? And now as it turns in, it starts to get snug, right? That was for entertainment purposes. That's me dropping the screwdriver. That's why we do these live. It's full of excitement here. Okay, as you turn the screwdriver, okay, it's turning, and all of a sudden it will just stop. It'll snug. You stop there. It's not going to come out. It's nice and snug. Don't over tighten it, or you will break it, and then you will not be able to use the motor until you have that brush cap. Do not use a motor without a brush cap. So anyway, before we end, I'm going to pick this beast up. Oh, not quite as heavy as some of the machines I work on. Let's turn it around, and this is the side that may have shown up when I took some of the covers off. And I may have mentioned this to you guys. This says Matsushita Electric. It does not have a country of manufacture. I have a hunch that it was made in Japan, because in the 80s I think they were still Japanese-made motors. Now there's one thing I want to show you guys, and you've seen me just talk about these before. And that has to do with lubricating motors. I could almost make this a motor. Maybe I should put this under motor series. Now, we've talked about this before, but it bears repeating. Motors have one of two types of lubrication. They either use grease, and grease is strictly, when we're talking about sewing machine motors, these are motors that go way back. The old white rotaries and Kenmore rotary motors. You guys have seen me do overhauls in my motor series on that, on a motor like that. And then the others were some of the Singer, the BT motors that Singer had, and also some of the motors from the Slantomatics. Over time, Singer would keep their motor designs, but sometimes they would do away with grease wick ports where you could put the grease. Okay, so you have to. It's on a case-by-case basis. You can't generalize. If the motor has a grease port, look at the manual. If it's a Singer, you can get manuals all day long, and you will put Singer lubricant. You will use Singer lubricant as your lubrication for the bearings of those motors, or the bushing, as it were. We should do a video sometime on what's the difference between a bearing and a bushing. But for our purposes, right now, today, I just want to show this to you guys. So you're looking at the side of this motor. You could easily see this on a sewing machine, just like you can on this Serger. It's extremely important to know where you actually put, in this case, it's sewing machine oil is the lubrication. And you use very little. If you put oil in the wrong place, or you put too much, you will ruin the motor and create a disaster. Okay, you don't want to do that. The reason you have this, and one day I'll have to do a video on showing the drive shaft and what it fits in and why it needs that lubrication. These are air holes. Okay, do not put oil here. Do not put oil in your brushes. You don't put oil anywhere except one specific kind of hole. Now, if I turn the machine, you see the pulley. This is the drive shaft, and this goes all the way through the motor, and it rests on this side, right here. Now, inside, where the drive shaft goes into the motor on both ends, is a bushing. It's like a collar, or like imagine if you had a pipe, right? And then the shaft goes in the pipe. The pipe is acting like a sheath. And it's when that shaft rotates in that bushing sheath or cover, that's where it needs the lubrication. If you don't have lubrication there, then it builds up friction and shortens the life. Now, with sewing machine motors, and eventually they would stop putting these holes in, they would call them lubricated for life. I don't know if modern copies of these motors offer that. Some might, I don't know. You guys tell me if you have bought a new one that has this. But there's a hole right here. Right, not there. That's just like that's a rivet of some sort. Right here. Okay, it's tiny. It's like the size of the head of a pin. It's really tiny. Now, here is a place where you put 1 drop of oil. Sometimes I've had Kenmore, old Kenmores that had this and it says only 1 drop, because people often think more is better. It is not. Now, you guys know that when I lubricate the moving parts of an old machine that's been dormant, I use more than 1 drop on those areas, but not on motors. When you have a motor that has a place for sewing machine oil as a lubrication, you put 1 drop, guys, and it goes right here, okay? So I'm going to put this right there. You can see it going. It's okay, a tiny little bit came out. Now, how do I get it to go down in there? We simply turn the hand wheel and let the pulley move. And as the pulley moves, the shaft is moving and it will pull the oil from where you just put it. It'll pull it down in there. It doesn't take much, okay? Don't put more than that. Now, you know, a year later, if you want to add, you can add another drop another year. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. And I don't know if it will show up in the light or not. If not, I'll get my trusty flashlight here if I don't drop it. Okay, we're seeing the other side. You can see where the shaft ends, right? The shaft ends right here. But right there, guys, not these holes. These are air holes. Do not put oil here. There's only one type of hole that you can put oil in. Here's the other one. It sits right there. It's really just the same size as the other one. Now, these motors were often they were often designed with holes both above, sometimes not, sometimes they just have them on one place above, and then there's one below. The reason they did that is because they didn't always know what orientation the motor would have when the manufacturer of the machine used it. So they offered it both sides. You don't need to put it in both holes, okay? Because the top hole, you put the oil there, okay? We turn the hand wheel, just like we did for the other side, or you can oil both holes and then turn the hand wheel. It's up to you. Now, that will do its job. It will work its way around the shaft inside the bushing, and it will feed it and keep it happy. And that's it. That's all you need to do to that. It's less is more. Believe me, less is more when it comes to lubricating motors. You do not want to lubricate them more than what they are called for because they don't tolerate it, right? When I was oiling the machine here, let's give you guys a better view. If you remember up here where I was oiling, you know, I put for normal oiling on something you can reach, like these spots here that have the red, you put 1 drop, okay? That's all you normally need when the machine is up and running. But for restoration, you guys notice, remember I put 1, 2, sometimes 3 drops because the machine was dry. You can do that on mechanical moving parts where you have metal against metal. Never do that to a motor. Never, ever, ever. You will destroy it and you'll be very unhappy. So there you go. That is probably the shortest video I've had on this machine thus far. So you might think, gosh, why is he doing all this and he hasn't even plugged it in to see if it runs? I'm doing this because I don't want to harm the machine. I don't want to harm it. I had to clean the dust and the lint out before I oiled it, and now I've been oiling it. And then I checked the motor. What if I plug this in and run it and the brushes are gone or almost gone? I could ruin the motor. So I know I'm going to need brushes. A 1/4 inch is plenty. I can actually test this machine. I can use it. You could purchase it and use it for quite some time, but I don't want to do that. I want to go ahead and get the brushes replaced. They're easy to access. They don't cost much, and this will be good to go. Once those brushes are replaced, they're going to be good for quite some time. So, you know, why not? Why not do it correctly? We've gone to I have gone to the trouble of I feel like you guys are with me, helping me, just watching. I have gone to the trouble of taking this thing apart. Why would I not just go ahead and do that, right? So, got the brushes on order along with a replacement thread stand, because the one that came with this machine was snapped off. It's you know, thread stands are quite vulnerable, but there you go, guys. Another step along the journey of getting this machine up and running. I'm hoping that these loopers are working good. I notice, if any of you know, I'm kind of put this in the video, hoping one of you might know this. Whenever I rotate this, it has one of the needles in place. Let's see if this will show up for you guys. Now look. the looper is going to come in and it's timed with the needle. And that's not surprising because the shuttle and hook on all of your traditional sewing machines is timed to do the same thing. But the loopers take the place of the, we have quite a few loopers here, it takes the place of the shuttle hook on a lock stitch regular sewing machine. But what I want you to watch is this. Notice at this angle, guys, when I do this, when the needle comes down, notice the needle is deflecting, okay? Because the looper is there to grab, you know, we're grabbing thread. That's what sewing machines do. Now watch, as it comes up again, you guys, let me see, I don't know if that's showing up or not. Maybe that'll help. Do you guys see that? Do you see how the needle deflects? I don't think that's normal. What I'm going to have to do, I'm going to have to do several things. I'm going to have to check to see if the needle has been installed properly. Needles can come loose, right? And it's not a hand tightening thing. You have to do it with a tool. I don't know why they did that, but anyway, maybe they didn't have room to put a thumb screw on the needle clamp. In any case, I'm going to have to check this, and then I'm going to have to check to make sure my looper is in the right spot, because it has to get very close to the needle. But if this needle has to deflect, I don't know if that's normal or not. If it is, okay. If it's not, I don't want to start breaking needles after I've gotten this thing set up. Okay, so there we go, guys. That's where we are at the moment. As I go through this machine and the project, and hopefully give you more than that kind of close-up, I will be going through it, asking questions, trying to find answers as I go through this remarkable piece of engineering. Thanks again for watching, guys. Thought I would give you a 21-minute video. This is a little shorter than the others, but I didn't know I could talk this much about something I don't know anything about. Who knew? But thanks for hanging in there with me. If you have ideas about what I might check on or see or think about, please share them, because there are only so many videos on Serger repair, or at least I haven't found many. And just like you guys watch some of my videos, and sometimes hopefully you're able to get information to help you with your machine, I'm putting this one out there, and I'm just going to go for it and see what I can come up with. But I'm all ears, because you may have experience working on Sergers, because I don't until now. Thanks again, guys. We'll see you in the next video.